Thank you, Mr. Krishnakumar, for a wonderful introduction. It is indeed an honor to have Dr. Raghavan Seetharaman amongst us today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your control panel. I'll bring them up at the Q&A session at the end. Without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Dr. Raghavan Seetharaman, our guest speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the generous introduction. I'm truly humbled by your love and affection and the generous words. President and Management Committee members of Coimbatore District Small Industries Association, the Institute of Indian Foundrymen Coimbatore Chapter, Southern India Engineering Manufacturers Association, Coimbatore Industrial Infrastructure Association, Coimbatore Tiny and Small Foundry Owners Association, in specific reference to Mr. Ramamurthy, Mr. V. Krishna Kumar, and Mr. Shanmugh Kumar, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and privilege to be an integral part of this interesting and exciting webinar. It is 1:25 in Doha, so it should be 2.5 hours ahead in Coimbatore. Let me try to do justice in the next 45 minutes to encompass a subject of very importance in today's context, post-COVID-19, business and economy of India. First of all, let me wish you Ganesh Chaturthi today, and some of the generous words I have to respond in Tamil. மதிப்பிற்கு மரியாதைக்கு உரிய தமிழ் பெருங்குடி மக்களை உங்களை எல்லாம் இந்த காணொலி காட்சி மூலமாக நான் காண்பதிலே மிக மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகிறேன். முதலில் விநாயகர் சதுர்த்தியினுடைய வைபவத்திற்கு என் வாழ்த்துக்கள். எனக்கு தெரிந்த உண்மையெல்லாம் மாதா பிதா குரு தெய்வம். தாயில் சிறந்தொரு கோயிலும் இல்லை, தந்தை சொல்மிக்க மந்திரம் இல்லை. ஆசிரியர் என்கின்ற பொழுது குலமிருள் தெய்வம் கொள்கை மேன்மை கலை பயில் தெளிவு கட்டுரை வன்மை நிலமலை நிறைகோல் மலர்நிகர் மாட்சியும் உலகியல் அறிவோடு அமைபவன் ஆசிரியன் என்று ஆசிரியப்பாவிற்கு இலக்கணம் வகுத்தான் நன்னூல் பவனிந்து முனிவன். ஆசிரியர் இஸ் மை third God and the respective God which I internalize. So I'm honored by your invitation, and let's make it more interesting, productive, interactive. So as the anchor has just mentioned, if you have any questions which you deem fit, I would love to respond for the, after completion of the session, after 45 minutes, 15 minutes, I will set aside and make sure I try to add value to all the interfacing personalities. First of all, we have to understand we live in an interconnected, interdependent world. This huge pandemic is not confined to India alone. We have to look at the bigger picture because I've been across the globe over the last 35 years. I've seen the world many times, and over 110 countries I've stamped in my passport, and I've seen through my banking operations operating in, as on date, over 20 countries, the challenges, the enormity, the changes this pandemic has brought in. We live in a changing world, challenging world that we have to understand. So my primary focus today is going to be putting the bigger picture in terms of global pursuit of this pandemic. And then we'll look at Indian economy, and I will offer solutions which I deem fit, appropriate for you, especially listening to Mr. Ramamurthy, the challenges, the struggle, the medium and small size entrepreneurs are going through. We fully recognize, as a practicing banker, I have given multi-billions in terms of small and medium-sized entrepreneurship. I have 3 branches in India itself, one in Mumbai, Cochin, and Chennai. My country manager and Two of my branch managers are also will be joining me later part of my solution provision when it comes to if we can add value to you as well. The reason why we need to understand the scale and magnitude of this crisis, if you understand the bigger picture, it's easy for you to interpret what we need to be strategizing in terms of substance and substantive compliance in the coming days so that you have a sustainable value chain. We have to move from disaster recovery to business continuity. That's the focus everyone has got. As on date, as you know, over 23 million people have been impacted across the globe. Nearly 800,000 people is no more. Look at the tragedy. India itself, we lost around 55,000 people. So the scale of the problem is not something which is ordinary. After 1930 depression, even 1918 to 20, that Spanish flu, this pandemic is designated and resulting in a great recession. Still, we haven't slipped into a total depression. If you look the series of events which has taken place globally, which I want to show you, I'm not sure the technology is going to support it, but otherwise, if the technology is not working because of the interconnectivity between distances, I would like to explain to you the global changes and challenges in terms of overall a bigger picture. The aggregate contraction of the world is nearly 4.9%. How much? 4.9% is the global contraction. When we had financial crisis in 2008, that was only confined to financial sector. India has gone through many crises. 1997 currency crisis we have gone through. And again, post-September, when American sanctioned, when we invented atom bomb. And clearly, the sanction had no impact, material impact in our overall financial stability. Financial crisis also, it was not resulting in major setbacks in terms of solvency. The liquidity crisis was there world over. Across the globe, if you look at it, it has moved from liquidity to funding to solvency, and solvency to sovereign issues. India withstood very well in 2008 and 9. Now what we are seeing today is not confined to one single country, one single continent, one single community. Whether developed world or developing world, it defied the logics. In aggregate terms, entire world is at stake to the tune of 4.9%. Advanced economies, so-called developing economies, is going to contract not less than 8%. Countries like America is going to contract 8%. Euro is contract nearly, negative growth is not less than 10%. So you have to look at, in relative term, India. That's the point you have to understand. When it comes to emerging markets, so-called developing economies, in aggregate terms, they are going to go down to the tune of 3%. India itself, in June, projected as a contraction. I was in IMF, International Monetary Fund meeting last year. India was projected between 7 to 8% economic momentum. In January, when I was in Davos, India was supposed to be coasting not less than 6%. In April, the spring meeting in Washington, that was virtual again, because March 11th, WHO was pronounced as this crisis is pandemic. Essentially, the revision was downward for across the globe, almost all the countries. India was revised downward to be around 3 to 4% positive. Even 2% was definite possibility. In June, when IMF came to substance, when we seen the lockdown, when the extension of lockdown was clearly mentioned, the whole equation has changed. From a positive territory, it has moved into a contraction. Aggregate terms, you lost enormous amount of the productivity. Now, China is said to be performing around 2%, possibly. That's the indication. Perhaps Bangladesh can do. People say between 1 to 2%. The rest of the country, rest of the world are all going to be reeling under extraordinary pressure, downward revision, contraction. It is not an ordinary situation. It is paralysis in substance. Understand the problem definition. The world at large has come to a standstill. The whole humanity is at stake. There were 4 major risks we are going through. Economic risk. We have to map it. Social risk. Environmental risk. The human risk, which I just mentioned. Millions and millions of people are contracting this, and mortality rate is alarming. And you're not going to get a clinical solution in the near future. Still in the formative stage, you have to get the tested, proven, accepted, administrative, medicinal, clinical solution for us to fix this issue. That's long way off. Let's understand this. This is not going to be a short-term trick. You can't just inject and come out of it. No. Even 2021 is under threat. Now there are positive reflection in terms of projection. But as long as the world has not identified a solution in total terms, even 50% chance of recovery, that's what we are looking for. That has to be administered to 7 billion people around the world, mind you. It has to be proven clinically. Everyone has to be having that medicine, production and distribution and consumption. Look at visualize it. Think about it. What will be the impact across the globe? Till then, nothing is certain. Your business is in paralysis, if I have to use the expression. Disruption to the core, the 4 factors which I mentioned, is going to dominate. So, India is not alone. If you understand this, you get a consolation. I'm not saying that's a solution. But we have to understand this is not an Indian problem. This is not only in India. The scale and magnitude of India is huge again. We are managing it well. If you look at in global terms, some of the preemptive measures which we have taken, some of the old values which we are holding good are all coming handy. And I tell you now, not for the sake of consolation, we are going to be a stronger force post-COVID. I'll tell you why. This is an opportunity for India. I'll also elucidate why it is. What you're going through in transition frame is transformational for India to be prosperous. We are going to eliminate extreme poverty, mind you. We are going to have food security through this crisis. We are going to bring in more enforcement of gender equality through this crisis. We are going to have more education, onshore, offshore, even female education. We are going to believe in gender equality in terms of education. We are going to build a better knowledge economy through this transformation. We are going to eliminate corruption. We are going to bring in digital governance. We are going to make sure the parallel economy, so-called the black economy, which is hitherto, has to be destroyed, which is pulling India downward. We are going to have transparency in our financial mechanism. We're going to substitute everything, including legal tender, through digital access. We're going to build a green economy. Already there are enough substance over the last 4 or 5 years. We have seen the reflection. We are substituting energy efficient solar or LNG. It's not coal and fossil fuels alone, which dominates 87% of our energy security. We're going to build green economy. We're going to have peace, justice, and truth established through digital court, including commercial court, through mechanism which will not block our truth in action, justice. Where is law and order? Every commercial dispute is taking years. Now, this is an opportunity. Think about it. India is lagging behind because of so many factors. India has got very strong credentials for us to see through because the underlying fundamentals are so strong. This century belongs to India. Take it from me. I'm not saying just because I'm an Indian. I'm saying it because I'm interpreting the core econometrics, whether it's demographic dividend or the changing dynamics around the world as a functional democracy. And this COVID itself is going to be a huge transformative tool for you to transform India. Here is my proof. Here is my solutions to you. Let's look at the solutions. Now, because Mr. Ramamurthy was mentioning, please offer some solution also. I will. First of all, we have to believe it's not a short-term crisis. If you understand this for the reasons which I mentioned to you now, then we have a way forward. Then you will accept logically what I'm trying to summarize. First of all, you have to restructure your business model. The current business model is dead, over, for the reasons which I mentioned to you now. Everything has changed. This is absolutely new world order. Post-COVID, you will have, in my diction, you have to come out with 5 distinguished reorganizations, 5R, if I use the expression. First one is restructure your business completely. Why? If you look at the problem which Mr. Ramamurthy has mentioned in his preface, what does it tell you? Your business model is changing. No more a conventional wisdom will work for you because the world itself is transforming into a knowledge economy. From a circular pattern, it's going to be flat. Does it surprise you? For me, it is not a surprise. We have been doing business process outsourcing, knowledge process outsourcing, right from 80s. In 90s, it was, it reaches the intensity. Today, it's a digital economy, digital world, knowledge-based economy. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you're born with. Everything will be monetized in terms of digital terms. Data is the ultimate treasure. So essentially, restructure it, rationalize it. Your process, procedures, policies, everything has to change. Everything has to change. Understand the dynamics. Conventional wisdom, destroy it. Throw it. You have less choice. You are primitive in your pursuit of interpretation practice, then you are not a businessman anymore. Your supply chain will change. There are already disruptions. We are seeing it. We are seeing the change in terms of supply chain because it is interconnected, interdependent in a changing dynamics. That's why I use the expression one world. Global citizenship will come. You will transcend borders. It's a borderless world in substance, one world. So you have reasons to believe rationalization will operate. We are seeing today, you go to Starbucks in New York, Midtown Manhattan, or you have it in India. The coffee price, if you multiply in one fabric, remain the same. It remains the same. Perhaps you have to understand this. The wage will become flat, whether an Indian or you are sitting in Silicon Valley, in Seattle, or Silicon Valley, or San Jose, or Sunnyvale. Your price for your job descriptions, the skill matrix, is going to be unified, and you will get the same price. The wage will become flat. That's the new world. Now, if that is the case, you should rationalize it. You should reorganize your business model. You have to look at aggregating products and services. It's all going to be one stop. So if I'm a banker, I have to sell banking, insurance, stocks, mutual funds, everything together. Customer needs the convenience. Customer is going to get the convenience anytime, anywhere. He's going to have access. It can be any channel. It is web banking, mobile banking, GPRS, or physical branch. I'm using my own practice as an example. Your business is your specialty. I will come to it if I have to customize it. But the challenge remains that you have to look at revenue enhancement as an imperative goal. So rationalization is not an option. Restructuring is not an option. Remodeling is not an option. Revenue enhancement is not an option. Remedial management, as on date, you have to look at it. That's crucial because you have a disaster. You have to move into a business continuity. So how do you survive? That's what everyone in this world is engaged. That's what everyone is engaged. That's a solution for you. I can be authentic in proving it, but I want to show you some clips which might be of use. Watch these presentations, which I will link it. If you're not able to hear, I will be narrating it. So global economy is what I want to focus. Indian economy, if there is time permits, I will give you solutions global. It's not only Qatar, how you can change your, use the window of opportunity of globalization and create a global gateway. If you're an SME, where you should set up your business, how you can export it, what are the various opportunities around the world, why you should look at global access, whether an access to finance or access to market. You have the know-how, but you have to sell it. Your world is your market. How do you do it? You need to change the business model. And there is a solution where I operate in the Gulf. I have branches in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, or Qatar. Right? That's an example. Now, these are the fundamental principles I will work on it. Now, what I said, I put it in a video clip. If it makes sense, you watch it. If you're not hearing, then I've already explained to you. Mr. Ramuti, could you hear it?
Audio.
Okay. So it's going to be a swoosh shape with a sharp decline, followed by a gradual recovery. That's what we are saying. So the global GDP, which I said, is a testament. So nobody is an exception, except China showing some semblance of positivity. Euro is showing a tragic 10% double-digit dip. India is 4.5% contraction. You could hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, right. So the overall picture, which I already narrated, is real. It's not only IMF. Mind you, OECD said the same. All banks said the same. So there is a definite reason to believe this year is going to be a negative growth for the world. So Indian economy, which we originally projected to be. So our original projection was we were aiming at 5 trillion. That was our projection by 2025, isn't it? Now, challenge. Now, if this challenge has to be met, we have to have solution for it. But can we still reach 5 trillion? The answer is yes. The goalpost is changing, the year is changing. But we have the groundwork done. It may be a surprise to you. For me, it is not a surprise. Because if you understand the Indian economy pre-COVID, it was designed to deliver the core values, the market liberalization which we brought in, the kind of FDI which we were pushing it in the last 6 years. Extraordinary. Our brand equity in the last 6 years, I operate from Australia to Toronto. And I know what Indian brand equity is today's context. Even during the crisis, nobody underestimated India's potential, mind you. This is the true honor. 35 years before, when I carried my passport, for my subsistence reason, I went. My biography was told by Mr. Krishna Kumar. But today, if I carry my passport, you are respected. I'm a proud Indian. I'm proud of my heritage, culture, civilization. There's no question. Now, in today's context, its economics precedes the politics. And that is precisely what's happening in India for the last 6-7 years. Extraordinary set of market liberalization. So it's all enabler for us. I'll come to you in a minute. But you also have to see it is not only IMF, it is not only, now we have lowered the interest rate. What we have done as bankers, as central bankers, technocrats, finance ministers, or politicians, governments of what they have done. There are two types of decisions you have to bring in. One is monetary side, another one is on the fiscal side. The fiscal and monetary side around the world, more or less, have taken a consensus in bringing universal values. That's what India has also done. When I announced 20 lakh crores, there's a huge meritocracy in it. Over $300 billion. That's nearly 10% of our GDP, direct and indirect put together. Mainly they're focused on MSME. The partial guarantee was taken care. The moratorium was taken care. Postponement of interest was taken care. Compliance aspect as goalpost has changed. Self-reliance was the focus. Now, if you look at the global picture, again, I want to give a global picture because I'm a practitioner in global terms. I don't carry any baggage. I want to tell you the facts, all of you to go be confident that don't underestimate India. Don't underestimate you. Be positive. That's what you should recognize. Now, I'm giving you facts and figures for you to understand the key happening sectors in India is huge. Expectation from India by 2025 is also an opportunity. Everyone has lowered the interest rate. That's what our Reserve Bank has done. The monetary policy, which comes from the central bank, the finance minister, does the fiscal side of it. The monetary side comes from the Reserve Bank of India, in our case. That's what Federal Reserve has done. That's what Bank of England has done. That's what Bank of Japan has done. That's what Reserve Bank of Australia has done. So it is not some 25 trillion has been pumped as additional money. How much? $25 trillion. 25 trillion has been pumped in the last 6 months, 6 to 7 months. That's the scale at which money has been pumped to see that humanity is not lost. We don't endanger the solvency of this planet. That's the crisis. That's the magnitude of the crisis. We cannot look at it only from India's side. Oh, Indians are suffering. there's migrants are not there. Yes, that's the problem around the world today. We are technically in great recession. We are not going to come out of it this year, 100%. We may are coming out, we may or may not. It depends on the solutions, which are reasons which I mentioned, even next year. So what choice you have? What's the next one in terms of interest rate? Interest rate has come down everywhere. Interest rate has reduced. Here I'm moving. Same thing holds good. Federal Reserve. The reason why I'm saying this is for you to believe that it is an issue. Now, Indian economy, let me come to the Indian part of it. Now, it is important that you understand Indian economy is a multi-trillion economy, and we have to achieve the 5 trillion. It's definitely not going to happen on 2025 as originally envisaged, because this disruption was not foreseen by anyone, right? So we have to now look forward to see how do we contain the inflation, how do we keep the interest rate lower, how do we keep the fiscal consolidation, how do we attract foreign direct investments, how do we make sure tax compliance comes in, how do we make sure we will convert this crisis into an opportunity. And that's the major challenge we all have. So if that is the case, we have to understand what the government has done is sensible. Now, I will only show you some of the clips of India. This I don't think you'll see it. But this is what I said to you now. This is the economic pact at its 20% growth. That's a sensible step. Now, Atmanirbhar Bharat package, if you look at it, you have seen 3 lakh crores was given for working capital facilities for MSME. All the 4 parts, if you look at it, there is a definite focus on by the government to look at objectively and start rebuilding this middle and small and medium-sized entrepreneurship. There's nothing you can do. I'll also show you what Qatar is doing. We put $20.5 billion because our GDP is around $200 billion. Our per capita is very high. A small country like 2.8 million people, they have 200 billion as a GDP. So our external reserves are twice of the GDP, $400 billion, including central bank cash reserves and gold. So even 2 years without revenue, we can survive. India's foreign exchange reserve is around 522 billion today, which is solid. Why are we underestimating our potential? We have taken, last year alone, we received 60 billion as FDI, 10th in the world. We are moving in the right direction. We are climbing in the right direction. We have to understand this and accept this. And this year, already there is a commitment for $40 billion. You have seen Facebook has, agreed. Google has agreed 10 billion. We have Reliance Jio has been setting the right kind of initiatives in terms of digital e-commerce. So what's happening, you have to look at in total picture, not to isolate ourselves. Our problem, if you look at inward, we will not be able to come to terms. We have to look inward as well as outward. Your problem, India's problem is measurable, manageable, uncontrollable, let me tell you, with all conviction. So when it comes to growth in sectors, if you look at, of course, every sector is impacted, but where there is a minimum impact is on the healthcare. We have healthcare, but what they have done is extraordinary. Healthcare is here to stay, and it's through e-tailing, all this business model is getting converged to a bigger advantage for healthcare solutions. Healthcare for all will happen. When the Prime Minister was telling 7 years before in the National Independence Day celebration about hygiene, Swachh Bharat, people underestimated. Today, it's a value-driven exercise. Social distancing we are forming. We are maintaining cleanliness. And that's a huge, huge preempt we have envisaged. We have to understand this from a global perspective. Our methodology of even Namaste is now widely prevailing. Look at the heritage which we brought in. We should be proud of our heritage, culture, and civilization. Our Siddha medicines are working. Our Kabaswara Kudinir is quite, solid. Our spices are working. If we believe in ourselves, our heritage is not an ordinary one yesterday or 200 years or 300 years old. We were ruling the world, 33% of GDP in 16th century, not long ago. We lost a bit. We're coming back in track. And that's going to be the case. I'm telling you, this is a blessing in disguise just coming to you. Now, if you understand the rating agencies, they have downgraded us. Not all, but there is clarity required. In fact, I myself is challenging that part of it. Now, in substance, I am a global banker. I look at every country's underlying economics. I look at the universal axioms. I interpret based on economics, which are profoundly managed or practiced by political framework as well as the alliance between politics and economics. Now, if you objectively look at it, we are in the right direction. I'm not going to say it on account of time and the volume. International Monetary Fund underestimated because of the recent. These are all I have already said to you. Government RBI's measures, which I mentioned, is important. Now, Reserve Bank has taken MSME, they have already done. They have reduced the repo rate. They have reversed repo rate, they brought it down to 3.35. There is no reason you can push in the Reserve Bank. But they have to extend. The lockdown is extended. So there are reasons to believe. Now, India's sustainability, if I have to look at it, for the reasons which I mentioned to you in the first phase itself, every sustainable development goal, there are 17 goals defined by United Nations. If you tally one by one, you will find where India is heading. I think if you look and map these risks into governance, into policies and procedures which India is heading, there is a great amount of wisdom and sanity in the frame. And that's what my message to you guys. That's what I want you to understand. There is a tremendous amount of potential for us to see through. Why? I'll tell you. The key happening sectors, if you look at it, first of all, from my investment perspective, it is attractive. We have e-commerce market, which is going to run in multi-trillion. I foresee between 4 to 5 trillion e-commerce market is in the making now. We are going to replicate Silicon Valley in India. Because now wage is becoming flat. As long as land reforms comes in, labor reforms comes in, you will be in a position to make sure that you become highly competitive. You don't need to import. That's what the framework is all about. Look at the balance of payment position with China. Look at the balance of payments position today. You have to export now. You will export eventually. After this crisis, it will take another 3 to 4 years. And that's what our vision should be, considered vision. Why? You are fourth largest in terms of pharmaceuticals. Your choice in overseas R&D destination. Commercial vehicle market. Okay, you are disrupted now. Nobody is buying vehicles. Okay. That's not only in India. Around the world, the same story. Smartphone market. Where you have the market? Today, you have 1.5 million mobile phones, 1 billion internet users. If you look at the magnitude, 1 billion bank accounts you can create. Our financial inclusion policy is a model. When Mr. Arun Jaitley was alive, I interacted with him in Washington during 2015 and 16. He was showcasing, the whole world was questioning how you are able to bring in financial inclusion, 250 million people under the belt of. We showcase around the world how we can bring in. Because once you have direct debit, you are eliminating corruption. Once you bring in single economic union through GST, your focus is different. And that's what we should understand. Food production, we can be self-sufficient in total terms. Domestic air growth, still, arguably, you have scope for improvement, but you have to necessarily privatize and you will move forward. Largest startup ecosystems. With all this digital governance, look at the opportunity. As I mentioned, generic drugs, largest pharma of biotech, talent jobs. You have. What you cannot do with this? Largest road network, you have scope for it. You need around 4 to 5 trillion. If you look at it, 4 to 5 trillion you need. India can get it. Because where else global surplus liquidity will get invested? When there is negative interest going on in many parts of the world. Now, this will act as a trigger. Expectation for by 2025, what we had, 5 trillion. So it means around 125% rise in your per capita income. Our population is 1.5 billion. Where else is the consumption available for you in an integrated form? Where else is happening in a functional democracy? Why don't you? There's a price to pay for democracy. Understand this. Today, with all this digital governance, every individual become institutions, mind you. We have to respect every individual. He's a media per se. He's a journalist per se. He can ventilate his views. That's the world we are in. If I cannot oppress or suppress even my daughters, our children, that's the world we are in. That's the evolution we have to respect. Human dignity. Humanity come to respect now. Human rights comes to respect. And here is a functional democracy where you will be looking at 1.5 billion people, where 65% of the population, 65% of the population less than 35, mind you. 480 million people between 15 to 35. So 550 million people, middle class population. 550 million people. Which part of the world you have? These are mind-boggling opportunities. 110 million new housing market. If this economy is not going to take off, which part of the world will take off? I'm not saying. The whole world is accepting it. The whole world is relying on India to restart this world. India has to wake up faster. India has to get ignited. India will come back in track. That's what we should believe. 100 smart cities, that was the plan. Now, all the more reason we have to speed up the digital governance because everything is connected now. Now, look at the rapid acceleration in terms of customer convenience, the usage which we are seeing today. 1.5 to 1.2 trillion minimum we need in the next 3 to 4 years infrastructure investments just to kickstart all what I mentioned now. Housing has to take place, the smart cities has to come, 126, the airport has to come. We have to modernize it, right? We have to move forward. And we also have to move, as I mentioned, green economy we have to build. I've been propagating from sitting where I come from Tanjore. Nanjayum Punjayum Konji Vilayadum, Tanjay மாவட்டத்திலே பிறந்து வளர்ந்து பச்சை பசேல் என்று பசுமை நிறத்தை பார்த்து வளர்ந்த ஒரு இளம் மாணவன் தான். அப்படி வளர்ந்ததுனால எனக்கு அந்த பசுமையினுடைய புரட்சி தெரியும் எனக்கு. இன்னைக்கு green economy I am advocating across the globe. In the Gulf I planted trees for 15-20 years. I am running an eco school program I presented many a time in the United Nations how we have to create a carbon neutral world, how to reduce the carbon emission. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is we have less choice. LNG is an option. 175 gigawatt renewable energy to be generated. India has to generate. So if you don't, already there are semblances of moving into the direction. So what will enable us to move forward? The question can come to me. Okay, you're very optimistic. You can say that. I'm not optimistic. I'm only giving you the relative meritocracy in terms of comparison. Because, number one, we are transformative in terms of decisions and leadership. Trust me. Whatever be the internal politics, which we are not concerned. But outside, when you look at it, ease of doing business is improving in India. Don't look at the crisis in isolation. We have liberalized many of the foreign direct investment policies. I don't need to elucidate, sitting there. We are building a resilient financial markets now. Now, we have the best-in-class human capital. This I will vouch for it. Wherever Indians have gone, it is not only me, an ordinary person like me. There are extraordinary people there sitting across the globe. Whichever be the profession they are engaged in, their hard work, their commitment has been showcased beyond definition. They're honest, sincere, trustworthy. That's why 30 million people are sitting outside. 30 million. I have visited every Indian community right from Perth to New York, including Tamil Sangams. I've been part of this celebration. Best-in-class human capital we have produced. Digital first economy, if you bring in, our value system will get redefined. So what are the dynamic shifts which I'm seeing it in the marketplace? First of all, fortune shifting in favor of farm sector. Second, the changing energy mix, which can transform India to better options. Leveraging information and communication technology, ICTs, and startups. That's a bigger option for us. Global value chain, most important. The small and medium-sized entrepreneurs are confined to value chains. Supply chains. Shift in supply chains, both domestic and global. Now, this is the time. And infrastructure as a force of multiplier of growth. That is where the country is willing to spend. You have to spend. You have inflow of FDI, public-private partnership we have to build. The minute you start building this public-private partnership, sky is the limit for us to perform. Trust me. Because you will have payback, investment will come, and external inflow will be, FDI will have definite value advantage in relative terms, and the country is poised for dynamics, and you have cost-effective labor, cost of capital, you can set it up in multiple forms. That's why I thought of bringing in the Gulf as a market for you, because of the proximity, because of the human capital investments. Now, you have said your concern. I can give you solutions in specific terms. I've given you the bigger picture now. Let me move on to the opportunities. I'm moving on to the banking side of it, how we can facilitate. My country manager, Manish, are you there by chance?
Yeah. Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yeah, you heard me so far.
Yes.
How we can help these small and medium-sized entrepreneurs? We have aggregation of very many small and medium-sized entrepreneurs sitting across. They're attending this conference.
Yeah.
How can we set it up? First of all, enabling them in the Gulf. Okay, the reason why you should set it up, I'll give you. Then Manish can throw some light from Indian perspective. See, operating in the Gulf is relatively easy. First of all, its proximity, I mentioned to you. We have 700 million people sitting there. There are free zones. Whether it's Dubai or Qatar, I will suggest, because Qatar's economic fundamentals are very strong. Per capita is very high. And the sustainable value chain is created because it's a commodity-driven economy. It's not only trading traffic or property traffic. It is very strong economic fundamentals, and you can look at the overall growth in dynamics. Cost-effective labor you can bring in. You have free zones, economic free zones you have, business incubators you have, and the cost of capital is cheaper. Even during the crisis, we waived the rent, we waived the taxes, we waived the customs duty, we enable the small and medium size for next 3 years, a concessional advantage, even interest free we are giving for many of the sectors. So it is very business friendly environment. And Manish, you can take it from me and tell me how you can add value for all these associations and the members of the associations for enabling them to become set up in the Gulf to become the global gateway right from Qatar.
Yeah. So thanks. Yeah, I think as a bank, Doha Bank does look at SME quite actively, and I think in Qatar we have programs specifically driven to support SMEs, and their requirements. So, in India as well, we can leverage on that capability to offer solutions to SME customers. Just from a balance sheet perspective, we are also funded by local deposits or by NRI deposits really in India. So in that sense, we are reasonably competitive. Our single borrower is not that large, but that sort of makes us, uniquely positioned to look at SMEs, because typically the individual transaction sizes are smaller. The bank has an appetite to support SMEs. Besides that, I think we are quite active on the trade side. So there is a lot of trade, obviously, happens between India as well as the South countries. And, that is something where we have rep offices where we can support, your exports into all the neighboring countries of India, as well as any exports to Gulf, where we are physically present. So we can provide the full range of, banking services. The bank has an appetite to do business, to support SMEs, either directly through funding facilities or through trade facilities, especially for your transactions in the Gulf as well as in the neighboring countries. And yeah, and I think we have 3 branches in India. So we are present in Bombay, Chennai, and Kochi. And obviously, with all the payment mechanisms that are available now, we can actually service customers, across the country. So we have customers across the country already, and our relationship teams are quite focused on growing the franchise. Especially in regions which are close to where we are located. Chennai branch is obviously next door to Coimbatore. We have some customers already which we have been talking to in Coimbatore, and we seem to associate with other companies. We feel that there is a requirement, and we can support them in their requirements.
Yeah, that's a good summary, Manish. I think I seriously suggest Coimbatore. Small, medium, and small entrepreneurs, if they want to explore, we can do a tour in Qatar. Let them have us, at least the committee members can visit. I was, before the commencement of the webinar, I mentioned to the managing committee members, they can have a look at it on site, and they look at the business incubators, they can look at the free zones, they can look at the seaport, the airport, and then work out the commercial viability in terms of funding, importing of labor, and integrating them, and create export from here. They can use it as an export, and then partial manufacturing here, partial in their home, wherever they have, within the frame. So I think you have to look at the business from a global perspective now. This is another necessity, which is because the market is unified. You cannot even at India level, it cannot be competitive unless your manufacturing cost is cheaper. Unless the financing cost is cheaper, you cannot be, manufacturing cost will not be cheaper. If your manufacturing cost is not cheaper, you cannot export. So that's a simple logic. So you need your cost sheet to be to your advantage, or even at least universally competitive. the subcontinent. We were boasting on the pharmaceutical side. Now I see here there are other countries in the neighborhood. They are also becoming pharmaceutical. They are becoming bigger. Similarly, apparel. So you need to change your business model to be competitive. To change and make sure that you run it cost effectively, and then create total global access to your market. Because once you have commercial gate, you decide whether you want to export to Africa, or whether you want to export to America, whether you want to have in the Gulf itself. The choice is yours. But you need a connectivity. You need market access. You need cost-effective funding. You need cost-effective labor. Where you can integrate. Which part of the world is more conducive? Is it Europe or US or Africa or here? Which is more conducive? Why? And that's what exactly I think we should involve Madhavan Manish, if we can coordinate with Madhavan of corporate finance.
Yeah.
And give them the details, how we can help the specific industry or business, how we can enable them. I think that will be an early advantage. If Satish is there, Satish is also joining this Chennai branch manager.
Hi, sir. I'm here, sir.
Yeah. Any requests which come from Coimbatore side, please, all these association members reach you out. Please bring it to my attention first, and also help them. நான் என்னுடைய சென்னை கிளையில என்னுடைய அண்ணா சாலைக்கு எத்தாப்புல எங்க பிரான்ச் இருக்கு. அதுலயும் நீங்க அப்ரோச் பண்ணலாம். கொச்சின்ல இட்ஸ் நாட் கோயம்புத்தூர் அண்ட் கொச்சின் இஸ் நாட் ஃபார். Benny is also there. Benny?
Yes, sir, I am here. Benny.
Anyone from Coimbatore, please give a top priority. If they want to set up in the Gulf, or if they want to leverage on in terms of the market specifics, or if they want there itself any support, please give a first priority and see how we can add value to this business community. That's what I want to sum it up. And I don't have time. I'm running out of time. I've done my 45 minutes, and I have answered a few questions myself voluntarily, how we can facilitate and help you out. But if you want, somebody wants to, Mr. Ramurthy, should I show some Qatar glimpse?
Yes, sir. That will be fine, sir.
Okay. 5 minutes, I'll show you some glimpses of Qatar, because I brought some. Yeah, obviously the voice is not, where do you watch only the video?
No. Sir.
We are exporting around 77 million metric ton of LNG. We are going to scale it up to 110 million by 2025, 127 million metric ton by 2027. So it's equivalent to almost 6 million barrels of oil. A small country with less than 3 million population. If I put in one fabric, it is 6 million barrels of oil. That's the overall underlying economic fundamentals. We produce oil, gas, and petrochemicals. India itself is a major recipient. The largest LNG buyout is from Qatar. We have annual bilateral trade is around $12 billion, and It's Qatar for you. We are going to host 2022, and world-class infrastructure we have built in airport, seaport. But I can show you, but for a want of time, I don't want to take much of your time. See, this is a central bank. Let me move on. This is an oil and gas minister. This is the. We're going to host 2022. This is the airport. This is the five-star airline. Full class. So we have free services. The SMEs, if they want to use the free zone, you can use it. It's near the port. You can easily connect. Airport and seaport are interconnected. No tax. Flat. We have investment facilities. We have invested in multiple markets, multiple sectors. We're still investing in India. And the fintech hub we have. I don't want to dwell on it. Business startup we have. Anyway, we have very strong bilateral relationship. We can. His Highness met. The Emir of Qatar last year met the Prime Minister, and I have been meeting a part of the delegation time and again. 2005, when the previous Emir, Father Emir now, I visited Qatar along with Qatar. Emir, I was there in the delegation then again. 2012, I was part of the delegation, and subsequently 15, the new Emir took over in 13, and I was part of the delegation. And Prime Minister Modi came here. We hosted him. This was 2016 June. We hosted business community. We hosted. And again, the Prime Minister of Qatar visited in 2016. Then last year, again, the King of Qatar, Emir of Qatar, visited, met him in the United Nations. So it's a very strong relationship. There are 750,000 Indians already there. A lot of Indian associations are there. Indian small and medium-sized business there. In fact, I myself was signed in 2010 and 11 with SME Chamber of India, agreement with SME Chamber. That is mainly in the north, and I'm supporting them and supporting the referrals from them. So it's a growing relationship, and we are here to help you out. And I would love to answer if you have any questions further.